Welcome to the very first episode of the Elite Playbook. I'm your host, Evenson. I'm glad that you're here. This is the show where we break down fundamentals of football, making it simple and exciting so anyone can learn and appreciate the game. We'll be diving into American football. We'll talk about history of the game, how it became the most popular sport in the US, and why it continued to shape the culture far beyond the field. Our guest today is Kyle Tate, someone who's been passionate about football since he was a kid and has carried that love for the game all the way through. Thank you, Kyle, so much for being here today, and it's an honor for me to have you.
The honor's all mine. I really appreciate you inviting me to come do this. Getting to talk about football is one of my favorite things to do. I do it all day, every day anyway. So excited to be here and looking forward to explaining the sport in more detail. So I think that adds to people's enjoyment of the sport. And it can be a very complicated sport to really understand. So looking forward to answering your questions, kind of finding out what information I can share to make it more enjoyable.
Okay. How did you fall in love with football? And tell me, actually, what is American football?
Yeah, well, it's all about your community. It's about your family. So many people in the United States experience football together. It brings people together, whether it's at your elementary school, playing with your friends, meeting friends that way. High school, right? It brings the high school together. The players' families sit together in the stands and get to know each other very well. You travel with the team. You spend a lot of time sweating, bleeding, working very hard with a group of people on up through families getting together to watch college and professional teams play football. Just yesterday, I was with my family and two other families that we're very good friends with to watch the Nebraska Cornhuskers. That's my college team. Our kids played. They played football in the backyard. The parents who we've been friends with for years. My one friend I've known since my kindergarten year. We get together and we watch football. We talk about it. But we share meals together. We talk about what's going on in each other's lives while we're watching football. And then there's the experience of actually going to the game as well. It's a very unique experience. Especially for me, growing up where I did in Lincoln, Nebraska, middle of nowhere in the United States. It's a town of 350,000 people. The entire town is centered around Nebraska football. That's it. That is the thing to do. In fact, a lot of people say there's nothing to do in Nebraska, but watch football. So, and that's true. Maybe as much as you don't want to admit it, coming from Lincoln, Nebraska, it is the biggest show in town. There are 1.5 million people in Nebraska. Maybe 1 million live in Omaha and the surrounding areas. 300,000 live in Lincoln. On game days in Lincoln, the stadium holds 87,000 fans. It becomes the third largest city in the state, which is pretty incredible. There's 404 consecutive sellouts as of now. So falling in love with the sport often starts with where you're from and having exposure to an NFL college team. Smaller towns are centered around a high school team a lot of times. So it's really about community. It brings people together. The sport itself, and we'll talk about that later, but the sport itself is very entertaining for casual fans as well as for fans that have been watching it and consuming it and playing it for as long as I have. Yeah.
Perfect. I watch myself, and sometimes it seems like very, very, very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
Though we're not going to talk about the basics, the fundamental of the game. So what makes American football different than soccer or rugby?
Yeah. Well, so football originated from rugby, right? In rugby, when you score a try, you touch the ball down in the try zone. In football, when you score by crossing the end zone line, you score a touchdown. after you do that, there's a kick, just like in rugby. In fact, the story goes something like people were playing rugby and got tired and decided to take breaks between the action. And that's where football plays started to originate from. It's a stop in the action followed by another play, another progression, and then a stop, and then it goes again. So football has been around in the United States since the late 1800s, but it has obviously changed a lot since then, from the way it's played, where it's played, the equipment, and then the caliber of athletes as well.
Why do you think football is the most popular sport in the U.S.?
Number one, I would agree that it is the most popular sport in the U.S. It's a uniquely American sport too. And that's part of why we're talking today, right? It's not played in very many other countries. It's unique to the United States, and it's uniquely American in the physicality of the sport. It is, I think, driven by the passion that comes with winning and losing. The casual football fan, or even the sports fan in the United States, will often question why a soccer match can end in a tie. Right? That's why would it end in a tie? Yeah. We have to know who wins. And football will typically go on and on and on until somebody wins. But it's the United States gladiator sport, right? That was, the original sport was the gladiators in the Colosseum, right? And that is what this has come to be. I think that that's really the biggest driving factor in why it's the United States' favorite sport. It is the physicality of it. It's the aggressiveness of it. Part of what makes it so entertaining.
Okay. Without going into details about the game, how it's played, from what I've heard, is football really about the game itself, or is it about the show? Because
sure, yeah,
we're talking without going to Super Bowl. What people are saying, I mean, a lot of people will watch for the commercial.
Certainly during the Super Bowl, the halftime show.
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
So is football really about the game itself, or is it about the entertainment?
The Super Bowl is one game, right? And it is the biggest football game in the entire football season, right? From high school, college, professional football, that's the game, right? That's what it all leads to. So that particular game is about who's going to be crowned the champion of the NFL. But that particular game it's always a big deal to find out what the ratings were for it. How many people watched? Does the NFL want its top brands, its larger market teams in the Super Bowl to get more attention? That's been a big conversation. The game itself is the focal point for most football fans. I would say the casual fans. My wife loves to watch the halftime show, right, of the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. She likes the experience of being with friends and enjoying the game and hoping that my team wins so that I'm not a miserable, upset husband for the next 6 days until Nebraska gets to play again. I think that the fans of the sport love the sport, and there are a lot of fringe fans that enjoy all of the other, the cheerleaders, the band, being at the game, the experience, the concession stands, eating at the stadium. That can be a big deal. There are a lot of football fans that never even go into the stadium. They tailgate in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Everybody parks their cars. They get their grills out. They throw footballs around. They get their satellite TVs out and they watch the game from the parking lot. They don't even go into the game. So a lot of people enjoy the game just from that aspect. It's a cultural experience. For me, I grew up playing football. I played a ton of football. I love the sport. I don't care what everybody else is doing. I don't care what's going on. I watch the game. And if I'm watching the game with friends that are coming over or family that's coming over to our house to watch the game, I'm not really listening to them. I'm not really talking to them. I'm just watching the game. So it depends on who you are as a fan.
Okay.
But I think it's an entertaining enough sport that you don't have to know all of the nuance, all of the details to really enjoy the sport. There's a ton of action. There's high caliber elite athletes performing pretty impressive physical feats during the game. And I think that's enough to make even the casual fan really enjoy the sport.
If someone have watched football before, some people will say football is very dangerous or risky. And what would be your take on that?
Well, so if you go back in time, and I'm saying you go back 40, 50 years and watch highlights of the NFL or college football, you are going to see instances where players collide in ways that are performed for no reason other than to hurt, injure the other person, take them out of the game. You pull up a clip of the most violent hits in football, and you will see some things. You will see some very dangerous, very harmful plays. It's not lucrative for football to have its top athletes getting injured all the time. Mm-hmm. And that was happening more and more. If I'm the NFL, I'm the commissioner of the NFL, I don't want my top performers getting injured and no longer playing, because then people aren't tuning in to watch the game. They're not going to the games to see that player anymore.
You're not making money.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. That may be a big part of the reason football is so popular too. It's the money involved, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of rules have been changed over the last 15, 20 years to make the sport a lot safer. Some may argue that it's less enjoyable because you don't get those big hits anymore. There's penalties for things that used to be just a good football play, of a physical big hit. Those used to be the reason for watching. People wanted to watch that. But the NFL in particular has changed a lot of its rules to make it a lot safer sport. Now, it's still a very dangerous sport. There's been several instances over the last couple of years where players have been seriously injured. There was a cornerback for the Buffalo Bills, Hamlin. His heart stopped on the field. Now, it was not necessarily due to the hit, but the timing of the hit. And it was a very scary situation. People have been, they've injured their spinal cords. They've had several concussions. So it's not good for the sport. When that first started happening, I was one of those people that thought, oh, come on, that's just football. It's, big hits, players getting injured. It's football. You go out there and you're risking your body every time you step on the field. And you still are. But a lot of rules have been changed to make it a lot safer sport. You can't hit other players in the head. You can't lead with the top of your helmet to hit somebody anymore. You can't tackle a quarterback, the primary player on the team, below the waist, really. You can't hit them late. So there's a lot of different things that have changed. Yeah. Yep. Okay. To make it a safer sport.
Got it.
But it's still a very dangerous sport.
As a parent, for myself, saying that I wouldn't want my child to play football. Sure. As I understand the game more, my thought have changed, and to be more open about letting my child play. What is your thought? Will you let your kids play football?
So this all centers around concussions. Like that is the biggest health concern in the sport right now, and especially in youth football, concussions. So the head-to-head contact is what creates these concussions. It can be life-altering to have concussions, especially at a very young age. When I was a kid, we played with big, heavy plastic helmets and metal face masks across the front. And I probably had 4 or 5 concussions. I started playing when I was 9 years old. And would I let my kids play football now? Not with that kind of equipment. No, it's you're not physically developed at that point in your life, at that age. It's not safe. It's not safe for kids that young to be playing that way. Now, what we've seen a lot of is the sport still wants to cultivate young athletes, right? They still want kids to grow up playing and loving football. So they've started playing a lot of like flag football, right? Where instead of all the pads and all the gear, you're not tackling each other. You're pulling a Velcro flag from your opponent's waist. They play 7-on-7 football, which is a lot less contact. Again, not tackling. It's almost more like rugby or soccer for that matter. So it's more focused on the fundamentals of the skill positions and not so much the big hits and collisions. So if I'm looking to get a younger person into football, that's what I would look for first. Flag football at a very young age, 7-on-7 football. And there's a lot of debate about even in high school, should you be playing tackle football with all of the equipment? I think that, by that age, you're a little bit more physically mature, but you should give it a lot of thought as a parent as to whether or not your kid should play.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, we talked about the money involved in football. There are college freshmen getting paid $1 million to play football, or perhaps not even play, just be on the team. $1 million. If I'm a family and this is a potential for my kid is an elite athlete, and I know that from a very young age. Developing that skill can financially set them up in a very positive, strong position. And I think that is what drives a lot of youth involvement in football. You are specializing in football if you are going to be an elite athlete, a Division I college football prospect. It starts at a very young age, good or bad, and that's a whole other debate. But I think that's why some people do push their kids into football at a younger age. So there's reasons to do it. There's a lot of reasons not to do it. And I don't think the financial reason offsets all of the health concerns, but that's just a part of the conversation. That's part of the narrative in football right now.
Yeah. Seems like football is mostly played by men. Should there be more opportunities for women and coaches and choreographers?
It's a good question, and it's probably a very culturally focused conversation right now, right? Women's sports are growing exponentially. You're seeing women's, the WNBA is getting a lot of airtime on TV. College volleyball, softball, those are growing in popularity, and people are tuning in to watch those sports. I would never put a woman on the field with men on the same field. We talk about the health concerns. That is a major concern. Are there women that could play the sport? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think that it's a co-ed sport where we're playing with men and women at the same time? I don't think so. I don't personally think that that's safe. But can women play football? Absolutely. There have been in college football, there have been women that have played the kicker position. And it's a big deal, right? To see that. So in general, I would say women should be allowed to play football, but putting a 340-pound male athlete on the field with a woman at the same time is just not safe. Mm-hmm. And I know that, again, culturally right now, politically right now, that's a very, it's a very polarized discussion. And I think you can have that discussion in a lot of sports, the vast majority of sports, probably. Men and women can play at the same time, but to put a woman on an NFL field, it would be very difficult in a lot of instances. But women should absolutely have the right to play, have the option to play. There isn't right now. There isn't. I would love to see it. Right now, there is growing involvement in women playing rugby in the United States, which I think is what may lead to women playing football. Now, there are some women's football leagues. They're not as popular or as frequently viewed, but it does exist. But I think women getting involved in rugby may be what drives that. So It's just not done at the youth level beyond flag football. It becomes difficult to insert a teenage girl onto a field with teenage boys that are developing physically at different speeds and in different ways. It's a violent, physical, dangerous sport. And that's the only reason that I would say that. Could some women play? Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
In general, I would hesitate to put women on the field in an NFL game or in college, in high school with male athletes. It would be, like I said, just dangerous, but I absolutely think that women should be allowed to play other women in the sport. Absolutely.
Okay. As popular as the football is in the U.S., and we have not seen football evolve outside the U.S., why do you think football hasn't spread worldwide like soccer?
So I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, the entry to the sport. It's not an easy sport to just pick up the ball and start playing, right? If you're playing competitive football, it requires a lot of equipment, pads, helmets, a mouth guard, cleats, pants with pads in them, the football itself, a field, goalposts. It's not an easy sport to just pick up because of all of the stuff that goes along with it. And then the rules themselves are very complicated. You can play the game, you can play the activity, I would say, but learning how to competitively play the sport just requires a lot. And it's not widely understood either, which is, hopefully part of what we can accomplish here. But you didn't grow up in the United States. What was your first, how did you first experience football? I would like to know what you think about that.
As you know, I grew up watching and playing soccer in my country. When I was living in a different state, I used to see a lot of people celebrate their team, mostly college football,
sure,
with the flags in the car and stuff like that. I still wasn't watching because I didn't understand the game. As I moved here to Nebraska, and this is where I see a lot of people are watching, and it's kind of a religious activity here.
So it's the only thing going on here.
You cannot be in Omaha and not following football.
Right.
So every Saturday at work, the place used to be empty.
Yeah.
So
I remember those days.
That's when I start paying attention and start watching. And my first game actually is when my school came to play the Huskers here.
Yeah.
And I remember at work, we used to work together and we always talk about sports.
Yeah.
So that's when I start watching. I used to watch the NFL
right
every year, but now every Sunday I'm in front of my TV.
And it's mostly just the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
That's what you would have. And is that something that you knew about growing up? You know, before you came to the United States, did you know about the Super Bowl? Were you watching the Super Bowl?
No, I did not know about the Super Bowl when I was back in my country. No. Yeah.
See, I think that's a big part of it. It's just the awareness, not knowing about it, but then also you loved soccer.
Yes.
So am I going to give up the sport that I love for this new thing? Right?
Yeah. That
seems very complicated and very different from what I'm playing right now. I think that's a big part of it. It's okay. You know, I love soccer, but I heard about football and I want to try it. I got to get 10, 15 of my other friends that also probably love soccer, or tennis or cricket or rugby, probably some of the other most popular sports around the world, to take time out of their sports enjoyment or sports activity to play this instead. And, okay, so it starts with a kickoff and then you return the kickoff and okay, now the offense is going to set up plays and the defense has to set up plays. It's not an easy sport to just pick up and start playing. Same thing, I see cricket, right? I don't understand the first thing about cricket. It looks like baseball, but I know it's not. It's a very complicated sport. Rugby. I played rugby in high school and college. Before I started playing it, I had no idea what I was watching. It kind of looks like football. It kind of looks like soccer. It was a complicated sport. I couldn't just go start playing it. It had to have an organized team somewhere nearby for me to start playing the sport. And I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't start at a young age.
Well, one thing that you elaborate earlier about football, we talked about the sport itself being very dangerous. And a lot of people from different countries wouldn't let their kids even play it. So that's also affect the play of the game. Yeah.
And that's affected the growth of the sport in the United States as well, too. There are more young kids playing soccer. There are more young kids playing rugby. That sport is growing here. Yeah. More kids playing baseball, basketball, because football is at its core a very dangerous, violent, competitive, physical sport. And there have been a lot of things to change that lately. Yeah. And I think that's going to be important for football going forward. If they do want to expand to places around the world, it has to be a safer game. Yeah. It has to.
And what has the governing body of football done to evolve against spread the game out in the world?
Well, I think part of it is what we just talked about, making it safer. You can't be Evenson, 10 years old, deciding, I'm not going to play soccer. I'm going to play this sport. I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell my parents I want to play football. And they're going to say, absolutely not. You're going to get hurt. Cause that's what's probably understood about the sport, is that it's a dangerous sport. And okay, Evenson, you want to play football. Where are you going to find a football, right? Do you have a football? Okay. You found a football. Do you have shoulder pads and a helmet and cleats and all the equipment we talked about? No, probably not.
Yeah.
So getting exposure, globally is important. And what the governing body, the National Football League, has done is they've started playing games in other countries. So they played in London quite a few times. They played in Mexico City a couple of times. They just played a game in Brazil this year as well. There could have been other games played in other countries that I just don't know about, but that's part of it. Bringing the sport physically to other countries has started. And I think, you're 10-year-old Evenson and your parents take you to a football game, and you think, wow, that was a really unique sport. And there are 50 other kids that were in the stands that day that said, Mom, Dad, I really want to play this sport. And you get enough interest, you get enough people that find it entertaining. You can grow the sport that way. I think it starts at that young age. And we've seen that, at the college level, the team I cheer for, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We have a punter from Australia. We've had Canadian players as well. We have a German player on the team. So we have seen that. There are places around the world where it's growing, and I think that a lot of it stems from bringing the sport physically to other countries.
Yeah. Is it a possibility that we have football in the Olympics, or is it going to be flag football? Is that certain that we're going to have it in 2026 or next Olympic?
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to work, or help football evolve?
We'll have to go to our producer to double check, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they're playing flag football in the 2026 Olympics. Rugby was just brought into the Summer Olympics, and we talk a lot about the comparisons between rugby and football. I think that you'll see football being played on stages like that in the Olympics, something like a World Cup, USA basketball, the I don't know what that's called, but basketball, the NBA plays a global tournament, something like that, where I think you'll see things like that. But yes, the Olympics, I'm pretty sure that they're going to be playing a form of football. It will most likely be dominated by the United States, but again, it's all about exposure. That's how you grow the sport. That'll be a very important initiative for the National Football League to grow the sport.
Big thanks to Carl. We are covering the one topic that get coaches fired and players blacklisted. Please subscribe. You do not want to miss this one. Stay tuned.